Real life situations. Mr. Carbone and Mrs. Nichols are grading assignments. Please underline anything you see underlined. Mr. Carbone has 16 homework assignments and 14 tests to grade. Mrs. Nichols has 64 homework assignments and 60 tests to grade. For each teacher, write a ratio to represent the number of homework assignments to tests. Are the ratios equivalent? Explain. So let's start with Mr. Carbone's information. Homework has to come first because I'm looking at the number of homework assignments compared to the number of tests. So Mr. Carbone starts with 16 homework assignments and 14 tests. Let's simplify that ratio because we know we can. Those are both even numbers. So 16 to 14 is the same as 8 to 7. I could also write it as the fraction 8/7. Let's take a look at Mrs. Nichols. Mrs. Nichols has 64 homework assignments and 60 tests. So looking at those two numbers, I don't necessarily know that they match up with 8/7, but I know they're both divisible by 4. So let's see. 64 divided by 4. 4 goes into 6 once. And I'll subtract. 6 minus 4 is 2, and I'll bring down the 4. 4 goes into 24 6 times. So 64 divided by 4 is 16. 60 divided by 4, that's going to be a little less than that, right? In fact, it's going to be 4 less. So without even doing any long division, I can say 16 to 15. Or in other words, 16/15. So, are the ratios equivalent? No, they're not equivalent. I know that even before I come up with a decimal representation because Mr. Carbone's ratio is 16 to 14 and Mrs. Nichols' ratio is 16 to 15. So we have that 16 anchoring us in the same place. All right. If I do convert this to a decimal, which is fine to do, Mr. Carbone's number comes out to be 1.143 when I round it. So what that means is that for every one test, there are 1.43 homework assignments. When I simplify Mrs. Nichols' number, 16/15, that becomes 1.06 repeating. So I'll round that to 1.067. So what that means is for every one test, Mrs. Nichols has to grade fewer homework assignments than Mr. Carbone.